Titanus Gojira, the Monsterverse's everlasting king of the Titans. Titanicus, Titanic Creations' vengeful ancient beast. Thousands of years ago, ancient civilizations worshipped gods, praying to them for protection and their needs. But little did we know that these gods actually existed, ruling the oceans and blasting the elements from their mouths. And now that their secret existence has been revealed, let us see who would win this terrifying Titanic showdown. Disclaimer. For this blog, I will be specifically focusing on the Monsterverse incarnation of Godzilla, and using all of his canon material that doesn't require outside help. So, stuff like Burning Godzilla, which requires outside help, and Titan Tech, which is not canon, will not be included. All of this is being done for the sake of fairness and debate. Scans and clips for both will be given, and sources for all material used will be in the credits. Special thanks to my good friend Silencer Sethius for running the numbers for me. He sadly couldn't provide me with scans for the individual calcs, but he did give me the numbers that he got. Thank you very much, dude. Please fix your sleep schedule. Without further ado, enjoy. The year was 1954. The United States had just gotten out of World War II and had begun the nuclear arms race against the Soviet Union. And to test their brand new flavors of bombs, they went to the South Pacific, where they unleashed fire and radiation upon the landscape, with the intent to improve what came before. And the most infamous of these tests was dubbed Castle Bravo. The bomb, detonated off the coast of the Bikini Atoll, wielded 15 megatons of TNT, 3 times that of what was estimated, and caused a major international incident that called for the ban of nuclear weapons testing. But what if Castle Bravo wasn't a test? What if, instead, it was an attack? But not on any sovereign nation or organization. Rather, an attack on something ancient and living. Flashback to the year 1945. Shortly after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, an ancient creature had awoken. A flying creature of darkness that consumed and destroyed all in its path. The Shinomura. But, alongside it, awoke another. An ancient behemoth worshipped by many worldwide for centuries, though its age was much older than those who worshipped it. Following the discovery of this creature and the Shinomura, the United Nations created a secret black-budget organization they dubbed Monarch. Their job? To hunt down and study this creature and more like it. But it would only be a matter of time before the secrets of these creatures, dubbed Titans, would be revealed. Flash forward to the year 2014, 2 more beasts, the massive unidentified terrestrial organisms, or MUTOs, would awaken and make a beeline towards the western United States coast for the purpose of mating. But with their awakening came the return of this same creature, and as Monarch rushed to track down and stop them, San Francisco was caught in the crossfire, and the world soon realized that monsters were real. The gods have returned, and little did humanity know, things were gonna get a whole lot worse. As for this creature, the one that started it all, Monarch had dubbed it Titanus Gojira, but his more common name is Godzilla. At roughly 120 meters tall and weighing roughly 164,000 tons, Godzilla is a beast and has done quite a lot during his over 252 million year lifespan. Starting off with his abilities, Godzilla has quite a lot. Godzilla's most iconic ability is his atomic breath. At an official temperature of 500,000 degrees Celsius, he's done stuff like part King Ghidorah's storm, decapitate the female Muto, incinerate the Shinamura in one blast, slice clean through buildings and aircraft carriers, incinerate an oil rig, disintegrate the decapitated King Ghidorah's head, and, its best feat, drill from Hong Kong into the hollow earth in just under 3 minutes. And, if his atomic breath isn't doing the trick, Godzilla also has a nuclear pulse, which can launch the 135,000-ton Muto Prime into the air. But if an enemy gets in close, Godzilla has several natural defenses he can rely on, such as his tail, claws, teeth, and spines, which can slice through a battleship with ease. And Godzilla is not just some brutish animal. His wide variety of senses, which were amplified after Mothra died and gave her essence to him, and his wits have helped him out more times than not. He was able to sense Tiamat while blinded and sense Kong's axe being charged from the hollow earth. And he's smart enough to set up ambushes, remember what a nuke is and how it works, and remember what Kong's axe is and how it works. And with these, Godzilla has his fair share of feats. Starting off with his strength feats, for lifting strength, Godzilla has several, such as lifting the 60,000-ton female Muto with one hand, and then pushing and kicking her into a building, lifting and launching the 135,000-ton Muto Prime into the air, lifting and throwing the 141,000-ton King Ghidorah, and later tackling him into a building, throwing Scylla across the horizon, throwing Umhuluk a good distance, and pushing back the 300,000-ton Mechagodzilla. And when it comes to breaking strength, Godzilla also has some noteworthy feats. He's broken through Arctic and Antarctic ice with ease, ripped off King Ghidorah's head with his teeth, ripped out the murderfish's spine, and sliced through a battleship in half. However, one of Godzilla's best physical strength feats is him barreling through the Golden Gate Bridge. Based on the size of the Golden Gate Bridge, 2.7 kilometers, its composition, steel, the area that Godzilla broke through, roughly 2,970 meters squared, and Godzilla's size at the time, 108 meters, the amount of power Godzilla would have had to output to break through the bridge would be about 0.4 tons of TNT, or roughly building level. And alongside this strength, Godzilla has quite a few good durability feats. He's tanked a missile barrage whilst running at full speed, survived a choke slam from King Ghidorah, tanked the oxygen destroyer, if barely, survived the Muto Prime's earthquake punch, which was stated to be felt worldwide, lasts pretty long in extremely cold temperatures, and survived multiple repeating beatings from Mechagodzilla. However, Godzilla's best feat would likely be him surviving a fall from orbit after multiple repeated beatings from King Ghidorah. For speed, Godzilla's top speed is calced at roughly 493 km per hour or 306 miles per hour, and he was able to keep up that speed whilst having a missile barrage launched at him. He's also agile enough to juke Kong and catch the male Muto with his tail. However, even with all of these impressive feats, Godzilla does have his weaknesses. While Godzilla is not weak to any specific elements, he is susceptible to being shocked and burned, as well as that his spines have been shattered and he has been knocked out by enough force. But none of these were enough to keep Godzilla from defeating his enemies. Time and time again, he's proven himself against many foes, big and small. That should teach you a lesson to not mess with the king of the monsters. The year was 1912. The Industrial Revolution had just left its peak, creating brand new revolutionary living styles and technologies, and leaving a strong mark on not just Europe, but all across the world. Though, amongst that time, tensions rose in the build-up to the First World War, and with that came the transformation of transoceanic transport. Try saying that several times fast. Also known as boats. And none were more famous than that of the RMS Titanic. At 270 meters long, and weighing just over 46,000 tons and carrying just over 2,200 passengers, the Titanic was an absolute marvel for her time, a great feat of nautical engineering that few could ever see being topped. And yet, it was. On April 15, 1912, at 2:15 a.m., the Titanic met its fate in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean at the hands of an iceberg, dragging over 1,500 people into a dark and chilly fate. To this day, it remains a measurement for any disaster, naval or otherwise. But what if the Titanic was not sunk by an iceberg? What if it was attacked by something else entirely? Following the Titanic disaster, reports of a large creature and others like it began to flood the papers, and as such, the United States government put together a secret organization dedicated to the hunt for these creatures that they dubbed cryptids. The organization was named Serenity, and they soon discovered something that would change the course of history. While its true origin is unknown, stories of this creature date back hundreds of years, with sailors crossing the Atlantic and encountering what they thought were large slabs of ice, only for it to be something else entirely. The few that survived were never really taken seriously. However, the oldest known account dates back to ancient Egypt, depicting this large creature battling smaller monsters comprised of a scorpion's body and a serpent's head. The legend tells of the creatures, which the ancient Egyptians called Skureaus, in combat with this cryptid, and ending with them all ultimately being defeated and one sealed away. Flash forward to the year 1942. World War II is in full swing as roughly 50-year-old General Erwin Rommel leads the charge through Africa. Digging through the dunes in Egypt, he and his men stumbled across the ancient tomb of Skureaus, and using the stone that sealed it, Rommel reawakened the beast and sent it out to wreak havoc. As Rommel and his monsters sent Africa into turmoil, Serenity was scrambling, as not only had Skureaus reawakened, but two other cryptids, dubbed Nosferodon and Graphixus, had arrived in battle from the stars, and the original, after 30 years of disappearance, had returned, and it was making a beeline for Africa with the intent to finish what it had started. And the world would never be the same afterwards. As for the creature, the agents of Serenity gave it the nickname of Berg, but there was another name given to it by those who encountered it thousands of years ago. Titanicus. At roughly 160 meters, note Soul War does list his height at 50 meters tall, but when comparing him to the height of the Titanic, 53.32 meters tall, including the funnels, Titanicus appears to be around 3 to 4 times that height. And weighing an estimated 40,000 tons, Titanicus has lived at least a couple thousand years and done much during that time. Starting with his abilities, Titanicus has a good amount. Titanicus' best ability is his ice breath, which is estimated to be roughly negative 150 degrees Celsius. It's capable of freezing over an entire town of area, freeze a ship and everyone on it solid, and freeze the Skureaus-Graphixus hybrid still. But outside of his ice breath, Titanicus doesn't really have much to defend him at a long range. As such, he primarily relies on its physical strength and close-range weapons, such as his claws, which are sharp enough to slice through the Titanic's hull, his horn, which can slice through the tail of the Skureaus-Graphixus hybrid, and his tail, which can pierce and lift Skureaus. But when it comes to defense, Titanicus' best is probably his internal body temperature. While it's not properly listed, Titanicus' body is cold enough to freeze and sever a human hand near instantly, and freeze over a section of water just by standing there. For reference, this was off the beach of Benghazi, Libya, which borders the Mediterranean Sea. And with these abilities, Titanicus has a good amount of feats. Titanicus' best feats are primarily strength and durability focused, usually with him lifting large ships, such as here where he lifts a German U-boat with his large backspike, as well as being able to slam and tackle the 55,000-ton Skureaus, and lift it with just his tail. However, when it comes to braking strength, Titanicus has a few, such as him splitting a U-boat in half with his backspike, breaking through a multi-city block area sheet of ice, burrowing under several tons of sand and sandstone, and shattering a frozen Skureaus Skureaus hybrid. However, his best feat is him slapping the Titanic in half with one arm. Based on the size of the Titanic, 269 meters long, nice, its composition, iron, hull and interior, the surrounding temperature, roughly -2 degrees Celsius, and where Titanicus struck it, that should yield around 5 tons of TNT, or around large building level. For durability, he's tanked several rounds of gunfire and cannon fire, being buried under several tons of sand, and being slammed by the Skureaus Skureaus hybrid. However, his likely best feat of durability is him tanking a shot of Skureaus' acid spit to the eye. This acid is strong enough to melt people to the bone in just a few seconds. When it comes to speed, Titanicus doesn't really have good running feats. His best feat is him swimming from the North Atlantic Ocean to Rabat, Morocco in roughly 2.5 days, and later to Benghazi, Libya in less time. But even with all this, Titanicus does have a few weaknesses that have given him trouble before. First, while he's smart enough to recognize friend or foe, his primal nature and reliance on brute force tend to give him a harder time in combat, especially if his opponent is much faster and smarter than he is. Second, he has a severe weakness to heat. Being a creature that relies on water to keep sustenance, if he spends too long in a heated or dry environment, he will weaken and exhaust himself, or even begin to melt. It's also implied that enough exposure to fire and other heat sources will cause a similar effect. But none of these are going to stop him from destroying his enemies in cold blood. So if you ever find yourself traversing the Atlantic Ocean by boat, do watch out for icebergs, especially since some of them may not be what they seem. And so, with everything that needs to be known about our combatants all laid out, it is time to decide the winner. Will Godzilla burn Titanicus alive in a blazing fury, or will Titanicus freeze Godzilla stiff and shatter him like a glass sculpture? Well, while Titanicus surprisingly has some things going in his favor, it's just not enough to take down Godzilla for good. To start off, when comparing their stats, Titanicus' only real advantage is him being stronger at breaking stuff, with his Titanic splitting feat at 5 tons of TNT, compared to Godzilla's Golden Gate Bridge feat at 0.4 tons of TNT. But when comparing their lifting and pushing strength, Godzilla lifting the 135,000-ton Muto Prime is over double that of Titanicus lifting the 55,000-ton Skureaus. And doesn't get much better when it comes to durability. Titanicus taking Skureaus' acid is nice, but it's nothing compared to Godzilla surviving a fall from orbit, especially since Titanicus was at relatively good strength with his feet, whereas Godzilla was heavily beaten down. Speed is not as big of a factor here, since neither really like to dodge attacks, but it is still safe to say that Godzilla should be much faster, since Titanicus doesn't really have much to work with. And for other stats, Godzilla's wider senses and more impressive smarts are more than enough against Titanicus. Neither really strategize, but Titanicus has shown himself to be a lot more primal and reliant on brute force than Godzilla is. So it's likely that Godzilla could strategize and move the fight even more in his favor. However, even if we put them at equal stats, Godzilla still has the advantage. Comparing their abilities, Titanicus does have slight improvement here. His Ice Breath is able to freeze over kaiju solid enough to be shattered, such as with the Skureaus Skureaus hybrid, and it's possible that he could do the same to Godzilla. However, Titanicus was only able to do that because the hybrid was heavily weakened. When Titanicus attempted to freeze it over early in the fight, it was able to break out really easily. So it's likely the same thing could apply to Godzilla. And even then, Godzilla's Atomic Breath is far more useful in this fight. The Atomic Breath is hot. 500,000 degrees Celsius hot. Titanicus is not going to be able to do anything against something like that with just his Ice Breath, especially since he has a major weakness to heat, as shown when he was melting whilst battling Skureaus in the Sahara Desert. Meanwhile, Godzilla has been able to survive in extremely cold temperatures for long periods of time, such as in Antarctica. So there's nothing stopping him from exploiting Titanicus' major weakness and taking the win. And even putting their beam attacks aside, while Titanicus' extremely cold body temperature and sharp appendages could help him for a while, Godzilla could likely keep up and hurt him just as much. So, all in all, while Titanicus has a few noteworthy things in his favor and can certainly hurt his opponent, Godzilla's durability, speed, and better abilities are more than enough to give him the victory. Titanicus should have bowed when he had the chance. The winner is Titanus Gojira.